Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live edition of the Mad John Maker podcast. This is episode 95, and we have a lot to talk about. We have NHL Free Agency, MLB Trade Deadline, Scarlett Johansson, and Disney. But before we get into that, we got some wrestling news. We'll get wrestling news out of the way. News that broke within the last hour or two before we just went on the air. We're going to start with Bray Wyatt released from the WWE, and it's safe to say this was a shock for a lot of people. Trending number one, I believe, as we speak, still in the United States. So a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of wrestling, couple wrestling names and words trending right now. Which is weird, not weird to say, but very interesting. So this is big news in the pro wrestling world.
It's just like this completely caught me even off guard, and that's saying something for the amount of people who have been cut this year. But I would say this was one of the guys that you would expect he's going to be a WWE lifer. You would have thought. I mean, I'd said the same thing about like Roman as well there, but it's just for how much time and energy and effort that they put into this character. And supposedly, according to the Observer, Wyatt was slated to come back as early as like August to set up a SummerSlam feud or something. And I believe like Matt, you said that they were
via John Alba on Twitter.
Who said that they were possibly going to do him versus like Drew, which is way more interesting than doing what's currently now between Drew and Jinder there. So man,
at least talked about. He said,
it's just there's a whole bunch of things that really just came for me here, like just all of the cool things that were involved in how much more bigger that the Wyatt family could have been, which it's insane now to think now, Matt, every single person in that faction is now out of WWE. That's
mind blowing to me.
Is mind blowing to me. But every single member is like now gone. And the whole question that came out of this was like, well, like, was he having some issues because there were some rumors of like Wyatt really going through a lot ever since Brody Lee's passing. You like wonder how much was he really wanting to come back, but all indications were he was all geared and like ready. But then this happens. For you as a fan, what were some of your favorite characters or like moments of his there, Matt?
I liked I really liked the Fiend and the last iteration as a whole, as a character. The split personality. Maybe not everything was perfect, but for like the entrance for that, I thought was great. When I first debuted, I think it was at SummerSlam again. SummerSlam. That was an awesome entrance. I think we saw one of his best matches against Daniel Bryan at the Royal Rumble in 2014.
Yeah, and that was awesome. Being there being there live too. I mean, he just.
I think that was a great opening match there.
Hell, even him versus Dan Daniel. I think it was at the Rumble maybe a year or two ago or something, where him and like Wyatt just put on an incredible match. Like those two had just some insane chemistry together. So even like that was good. It's just, man, when you really look back, my favorite character was definitely the very first incarnation of like Wyatt was with him, Harper, and like Rowan when they came up from NXT, were one of the hottest acts in the company, and I still say to this day he should have beaten John Cena at like WrestleMania, which still to this day it just makes zero sense to me. And really ever since then, it was an uphill battle for him to consistently stay over. But man, we even saw it at like Mania, Matt. That crowd loved him. Like,
I don't think him being over was any question with the fans. I think it was just what
Poking was just horrendous.
It was never consistent. I mean,
right.
Beginning of the Fiend, I was okay, but they had that out of everything that they made him do. Nothing was worth. Like, I can forgive everything else.
Right.
I could say, oh, he bounced back, okay, but him losing the Goldberg, I think, was the worst out of everything.
I've never seen you so angry outside of Karrion Kross on when we were down in the Carolinas, which we will get to that soon.
That was, I think, the worst. Nothing else was.
But the Fiend, but the Fiend getting essentially buried by like Bill Goldberg, a 50-year-old Bill Goldberg, in like 3 minutes when the Fiend was the champion. That was what ultimately killed him.
It had to. The only way you get around that, if they would have done that, is if it was the Firefly Funhouse Bray. That's the only way that would have made any sense to me.
Yeah,
because the character. If you had like if you had a 2-match feud with that, and you could set that up, and he come back, and then the Fiend is destroyed Goldberg. Okay, fine, but not you don't do that to the Fiend.
No,
with Goldberg. If it was, again, Bray Wyatt, if it was the Firefly Bray, okay, that's
the Fiend. But the Fiend, it's like, especially too, like when Seth hit like 20 curb stomps on him, and
that Hell in a Cell didn't do anything either.
That was the worst Hell in a Cell match I've ever seen, and nothing will ever top that. I don't care what the circumstances, nothing will ever top how bad that was. But now the question is, with Wyatt, is where does he go next? Personally, I would like to see him on like Impact, to be honest. Now, like, it would be poetic to have like Wyatt take over the other group that Brody Lee started there, but I really do feel like that he would be really good on Impact there, or pretty much wherever that he goes, because to me, a Wyatt who has complete a Bray Wyatt that has complete creative freedom is really interesting for me. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he actually does like next. It's just, man, there's just so much talent out there outside of WWE right now, and 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 also too with the cuts that keep on coming, man. Like I mean, as far as from an industry standpoint, I think this is one of the more interesting times in the business right now, Matt. I'm not sure if like you feel the same or not. And this will kind of segue us into CM Punk and like Bryan Danielson with them signing with Tony Khan and all Elite Wrestling. But how do you feel about the industry in general now?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't know if it's any more popular, but for wrestling fans, there's a lot more stuff to partake in.
Yeah, and man, and that thing was also really reinforced when we were away, which like figures as soon as we're not around, something huge happens, and that seems to be the case with the rumored signs of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson with all Elite Wrestling. Matt, first initial thoughts when I say these things right there.
If true, which
if true,
I mean, all indications are it's a big get.
Yeah,
that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah, it's just I'm more surprised about Danielson signing more than
Daniel Bryan,
more than CM Punk. No, that is his WWE name, which he can't like use anymore. Okay, but I always felt like that he was going to eventually be back there, but I think this ultimately came down to was he really wanted to work over in like Japan, and basically Vince and the company were not going to be able to accommodate him that, and I think he's probably is making similar cash to what he was making there as well. So I mean, the possibilities of like feuds and just really great TV and like matches that he could have are quite frankly endless. And with Punk, we're kind of already seeing the impact of him, and like he hasn't even been officially signed because they recently had a show, or they are going to be having a show in Chicago at the United Center, which sold over 12,000 tickets on the freaking pre-sale, just by the sheer thought of Punk possibly being there, which was kind of without officially saying his name. He's gonna be there. And they like threw up like 2 or 3 hints on this past week's episode of AEW Dynamite there. So I'm really excited to see where things go, because I think it was pretty obvious with these two signed that it really changed how things are going to be happening for All Out, because this led to like Hangman Page losing this past week, which the stipulation was if like he lost, he would not get a title shot. So I think they're probably are pushing that back to like Full Gear, and I have a feeling they're probably are doing Kenny versus Bryan Danielson, which if that isn't happening, then that was just a stupid thing to even consider right there, because to me this was already a very big match there. So if they don't, if they do, like, say Kenny versus Eddie Kingston or Kenny versus Christian Cage, it's going to feel like a huge freaking letdown.
They should never changed it.
I'm fine with it.
If Bryan's fighting for the title, why? You're building all this up, and then Bryan's
a bigger match. It's a bigger match.
But they can do that. They can do that down the road. They could, but from a like business standpoint, I mean, like, no offense to for Hangman, like, it's just like this is going to be drawing the company's biggest. When's Daniel Bryan debuting?
Probably with him next month here.
When's All Out?
And September 6th, I think it is.
I wouldn't have them face each other that soon.
I mean, like, you don't exactly. It's not going to take. It's not going to take a like 5 or like 6 week build.
You could do a lot
for these two here.
You just kind of throw Adam Page away. I don't like that.
No, I don't really see that at all. There is more to this. And now, if this goes to either Kingston or Cage, well, then yeah, I completely agree that this was a complete waste. But if this is to either Punk or Danielson, I'm not going to complain. So yeah, that was pretty much everything with that. And Matt, I want to tell you about my experience this week, or actually before that. There were some things that happened when we were away that really you can say was head scratching, and that was for your boy Karrion Kross. And I'll let you talk
Why is it my boy?
Because since you were the one who said, like, John, don't go online.
Kross lost to Jeff Hardy in his debut match, and I ended there.
Is like that all? Is it like the fact that he was champion and who hadn't lost at all since
that was implied?
Okay, that he hadn't lost or even had the threat of getting pinned within the almost 2 years that he's been signed with the company. Like, and it's just, and on top of that, before that, we had Keith Lee come back, and only to like lose again against like Lashley, which isn't as bad. But when the guy hadn't been on TV for 6 or 7 months, you would think, hey, let's try and build this guy up, because I'm not sure if you guys have saw, but like Raw doesn't exactly have a lot of babyface challengers for Lashley. So it's like, okay, we need to build somebody up, and they don't have anyone else now. And this is why they are doing Bill Goldberg versus Lashley, because they don't have anyone else, and probably because they couldn't come to a contract agreement with like Lesnar. So I just.
But guess what? Kross won this past week, but guess what? Guess who he beat?
No. Keith Lee. And according to like Fightful, if like Jeff Hardy didn't test positive for COVID, he was slated to lose again. And that was the original plan, which some were speculating that would have resulted in Scarlett coming up, which I'm asking, why doesn't she just come up with him when he debuts? But trying to make anything make any sort of sense with this company is like,
No, on Raw.
Mainly
Raw.
on like Raw, but it's that was bad. And then
what was your experience? I'm over it. Experience. What was your?
It was pretty much as you would expect, man. It's literally nothing makes any sense. It's like rematch after rematch after rematch. I mean, yeah, there are some good things. Like you can definitely tell with some guys, Riddle specifically, he was really over. But the freaking Nikki Ash stuff with Charlotte makes no goddamn sense to me. So at the start of the show, they announced, hey, for SummerSlam, it's going to be a triple threat for the title, be between like Nikki, Charlotte, and Rhea. And then they book at the of 4-10, okay, Nikki versus Charlotte, only to have Nikki lose. And Nikki says, Charlotte, I almost beat you. Your champion is saying that I almost beat you. You would think that Charlotte was the champion and not like Nikki, and which sets up a like rematch for next week between Charlotte and Nikki. Who wants to see this thing? Matt, can you answer me that?
No. No.
I mean, like, I'm watching this, I'm like, there are probably people who are going to make all sorts of excuses about this. Like, oh, like, but she has a great reaction for kids and stuff. I'm like, guys, we're really even insulting the intelligence of like kids here, because it's like, yeah, cool, she's over with the kids, but if she doesn't exactly win, doesn't exactly matter, because for them to see her as a superhero, like she has to win and not be looked as a freaking joke, which she currently is. And now it just basically what they're telling us is, oh, hey, basically everything that she did was a fluke, and really Charlotte, she's the actual I'm a champion here. Like it's just poking so ass freaking backwards with this company. But I'm trying to think what else happened. Oh yeah, like we didn't really get anything with like Lashley and Hill Goldberg, which they were kind of like hinting, oh, like we're going to see I can't recall if they were saying that it was going to be a confrontation, but some sort of a segment, which you would have thought, hey, probably getting a confrontation between both like Lashley and Goldberg. No. And that didn't happen either. So I'm like, what's the point of anything on this show? And then I'm trying to think what else happened. So I talked about Riddle, the tag titles were pretty much going I think we're getting Orton and like Riddle versus AJ and like Almos. So that I'm not completely against right there. So like that isn't terrible, but man, we also had Shelton and Cedric confront Lashley, and it just made me say, why are these guys not together as a faction? Because God knows, like because God knows these between Cedric and Shelton are doing so freaking much right now. And basically Lashley just beat the shit out of them, and that was it. So Matt, that was Raw.
Oh, you're done?
Yeah. So that was Raw there. Trying to think of it. So it just, man, like, I mean, it's bad when even like Matt doesn't even want to talk about that show. It's like, it's freaking rough right now. And ultimately, the things that are happening with Karrion and Kross, at least like for me, has really hurt my enjoyment in like watching NXT and
That's
makes
for me.
yeah, I know that, but just I like my interest in him versus Samoa Joe really is pretty much killed at this point just by them pairing him, and it just makes this match just feel just so insignificant. Which, speaking of that, where that guy confirmed for Takeover Samoa Joe, he is cleared to to like wrestle, and he will be facing Karrion Kross for the title, which I would assume Samoa Joe is going to be champion. And they also, Matt, looks like we are getting Raquel versus Dakota Kai. They like pull the trigger on that there as well. So, in which I believe that's happening the day after SummerSlam. I believe so. So yeah, that was NXT. But now, Matt, we have some MCU news here, right? With Scarlett and Disney here. Did you want to speak on that there?
Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney because I think, if I remember correctly, in her contract, I think it was her contract to get either paid or whatever for to only have Black Widow released in theaters, but Disney obviously released that in theaters and on Disney Plus. So she's suing Disney for breach of contract, and apparently Kevin Feige was disappointed with Disney for doing that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what comes down with this case. Everything else.
Well, and I hate to say, but I kind of saw this coming when they were like releasing the film on these streaming platforms, especially in this case with the MCU, because I believe that the issue was that with Scarlett, that she wasn't getting any sort of like extra pay from those from that cash there, and that's kind of where things are in it. It's really ugly right now, and I do wonder if this can be resolved. You would hope that it can be resolved, but man, it's just by the initial reaction, doesn't seem very very likely right now, wouldn't you say?
So it's I'm just interested to see again what the fallout would be after this. I'm trying to read and talk here at the same time about this. So yeah, I mean, that's a lot of potentially money and stuff that she might lose out on. I don't know how the contracts work, but
a lot of money.
If it was in her initial contract for theatrical release, and I don't know how all these the jargon that's used in the contracts, that does Disney have a loophole that they can get out of it, or how the wording is, but if Disney loses, I'll be real interested to see how that works.
Yeah, and this comes off the heels with her film there, which I believe on the opening weekend they did around 80 million or something like that. So
in theaters, yes.
yeah, so I'm not sure how much that was made just from Disney alone right there, but I wouldn't imagine that it wasn't anything small to the fact where Scarlett is like raising hell about this. So going to be very very interesting, and also like what kind of impact is this going to have on like future films? Because if Scarlett wins here, you know for a fact that a lot of these actors in these films are going to be asking for the same thing.
Yeah, depending on what other contracts or
Right.
said, stated before when they made the movie.
Yep.
That it could go the other way in terms of if they do theatrical releases and streaming releases at the same time, that might change contracts, being you only get theater releases depending on streaming. So,
yeah, I think so too. It's just and this is going to open up a whole different conversation here on like how much is it going to be really worth it. But as we are seeing as well, Matt, for like next week, Suicide Squad is being like released both in theaters and also on HBO Max, and they haven't really had any issues as far as contracts are concerned, because I believe like Wonder Woman that was released on HBO Max, and there wasn't too many issues there. So this could be just a specific case where this was the only problem, but who knows?
Yeah, I just maybe that was a Marvel specific deal instead of DC,
right?
Because obviously Wonder Woman and Suicide Squad's DC. So yeah, I'm interested it's going to be fun to watch. Not fun to watch, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yep, for sure. Okay, now we're going to get into some sports talk. So the Major League Baseball trading deadline, and holy crap, Matt, this was a crazy few weeks here, to say the freaking least. Whether it was like Scherzer and Trey Turner going over to the LA Dodgers, and now the LA Dodgers are essentially building a freaking like all-star team now with the amount of people who they have now over there.
Yeah.
For our squad, Adam Frazier, he was traded over to the San Diego Padres. Richard Rodriguez, he was traded to the Atlanta Braves. Clay Holmes, I believe he was dealt to the Lake New York Yankees. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. But
we had one picture to the Braves. Anthony Davis was the last.
Yep. Austin Davis. Yep.
Austin Davis.
Which the fact that we got anything for him, I was pretty surprised by it. And same thing too with Clay Holmes. No disrespect for those guys. It's just they had their issues this year, and for the Pirates specifically, this was, I would say, their last round of like moves, to where I don't really see them trading anyone else for the foreseeable future. Now, like, granted, that can always change, but it really feels like now that that Sherrington has really now loaded up a whole bunch of guys in the farm system, which is probably it is now going to be a top three farm system now. I'm just hoping now that we start to see some guys can now be progressed and all. I mean, like a lot of our good guys are still stuck in single A and at Altoona right now. So we'll kind of see how things go with there. And I am excited to see how these guys are going to exactly do. But I did see though with these trades that a lot of the guys who they got are like Rule 5 eligible too. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they're going to construct with their with their 40 man there. And just based on the current roster, I feel like a lot of those guys you can probably let go. A good example of a guy like that is Cole Tucker, who is really just not getting any better. I think he's only hitting around like 217 at like AAA right now.
Yep.
So like he's going to be one of like many examples to where I see, yeah, like he'll probably be off of the 40 man, or they'll just straight up release him to basically cover a spot for a guy who is going to be Rule 5 eligible there. So what have your thoughts on the like trades here by like Sherrington here?
I think trades like that he made are necessary. I know everybody thinks it's the same old, and
Yeah,
in the ways. I mean, it has happened, obviously before, but I think based on the plan, and it seems to be a plan, and what he's done so far, I think it's obviously necessary to do, because the team is where they are right now, and so you have to do something to build up the farm system, because the farm system was not the best in the current state before Sherrington took over. So he's built that up a lot. Trades. I know every trade is not like a top 5 prospect in the world, which you're not gonna. It's impossible, but
well, and to Charrington's whole like philosophy has been getting guys before they really burst on and really become extremely good. And to me, just with the guys who they had, unless you are trading a like Max Scherzer or someone, you aren't going to beginning a 1, 2, or 3 or 4 like best guy in someone's system. It's going to be really hard to make teams like give those guys away there. So I'm fine with this philosophy, but it's so obvious that when you're online, though, it's just people just have zero patience for this stuff, and I just simply ask, well then, what do you exactly want them to freaking do here? It's like they are a bad team whose farm system was completely dried up by the previous management team. It's like Charrington has to start somewhere, and unfortunately, he had to trade away everyone here.
Yeah, and in the future, if you have if you're in a position to be a buyer at the deadline, if you have prospects, you can use those highly touted prospects. Then you can use those to acquire a bigger talent, be it a rental or what have you, for the season. If down the line they're in contention for a wild card or a division like a couple years ago, that you can use it in pay for what, like I said, a rental. So that helps for there. Also, just homegrown talent. If what the scouts and all that see and these prospects turn out.
When you said that.
Was that you?
Yeah, I'm not sure how.
No, that was
happened.
ESPN there.
Okay.
I was looking at the deadline stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if those prospects, even if on the draft turn out to be good, then could have some in the future down the line, some good young homegrown talent. but you can also use, like I said, use those to get other major talents down the line if you happen to be buyers.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what they did with like Huntington was like, okay, once this team is starting to win more consistently, which I think we're still like 2 years away, I would say, before that's even really a conversation there. Now I'm hoping by like next season that we see a steady improvement. But now if you just look at the like major league team, it's bad. Like I was at the game last night and just there's just a lot of guys who a lot of people aren't going to freaking know. Like the only recognizable face on the team right now is like Reynolds. He's really is the only guy left from a team like 3 years ago. But like I mean, there definitely are some guys who I like for sure, but it's a very bad team right now, and it's going to take time. It's going to take some patience, but I trust what is going on with this current team, and just based on Charrington's draft so far. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about, but now it comes to time like, okay, now these guys need to like, progress and not do the complete opposite, which is what happened under Huntington. Was like, yeah, he drafted some guys, but they never really got any better. They just kind of just stayed how they were.
Yeah, the key is going to see so, I mean, so far the move he's made, I mean, really can't be angry at what he got back as prospects of prospects.
The only deal I wasn't crazy about was the like Frazier deal, and just because of how well that he was doing, and the fact that they got more in the Clay Holmes deal than with Frazier, it's just pretty crazy to me. But
I always wonder
right.
what everybody else was offering and what he was. I don't think we're ever going to know what he was offering or what he wanted to get back and what other teams wanted to give him. And maybe that was the best possible thing in their opinion.
Yeah. Like I think probably what happened was like Charrington probably forecasted that he probably wasn't going to be getting really any better offers. And I feel like just a lot of teams saw like, yeah, he had a really good season, but if you saw him before this season, really, really inconsistent.
And that probably had something to do with it.
And on top of that, he's going to be turning 30 this year or like next year. So it's like, do you really want to wait and not go in on this deal here? Which
I think it was the best possible. I don't think it was a bad thing, but I probably you weren't getting the number one prospect for Adam Frazier.
Hell, like I would have been happy if they would have gotten a top 10 guy, which they did, which was, I believe, the Padres fifth or sixth ranked prospect, who I believe was a shortstop, who he's currently now at like AAA, which I would anticipate he's going to be up here.
Is that Horry Park?
No,
somebody else.
He was that guy. He was actually in the Clay Holmes deal.
That's right.
I'm like a Marcano.
Oh,
yeah. Which I believe he can play either second or shortstop, I believe. And he has been up with the San Diego Padres, even though he kind of struggled. He's been doing really well at AAA. So I would anticipate that he's going to be up here soon. And same thing too with Park. Like they need to really find out some things about these guys. But man, I tell you, they really established some more options now, both at second base and at shortstop, and also too at catcher as well, which I think Jerriton got like what 2 or 3 guys, like just strictly catching prospects, including guys such as like Henry Davis too. So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys pan out. And honestly, we probably won't really find out for another 2 or 3 years here. But I'm intrigued to see the least. So
then there's the Dodgers who are just like
crazy. That freaking Scherzer deal alone was just.
I hope you lose.
And did you see too with the Chicago Cubs? They just unloaded everyone
I loaded more than the Pirates did.
Mm-hmm. Like Javier, he went to like New York, and Rizzo. He also but Javier, he went over to for the Mets. Rizzo, he got traded for the Yankees, and I believe Chris Bryan, he was traded to the San Francisco Giants, and Craig Kimbrel, he was traded to the Chicago White Sox. So they unloaded that core there, and now they're pretty much in the same spot as the Pirates are now, just completely just.
It's just, to me, that blows my mind how far the Cubs just changed.
Honestly, it's very similar. It's very similar with the Pirates, like from that 2013 to 2015.
But it wasn't like the Cubs were
awful.
Yeah, like they were in it. Now, like this year, they're 50-55, 12 and a half back.
Yeah,
and it just dumped everybody. Like, who the hell do they have? Like, I just
really nothing now, because now they're like going to be right there with us as far as like losing games pretty consistently. And I was just looking at the Pirates schedule, and yeah, it's not gonna be pretty. Which makes them winning like last night in Philadelphia, having one hit just blew my freaking mind last night. I don't know how that happened. They scored like 7 runs.
Here is if this roster is right from ESPN. Here's just the infielders for the Cubs: Sergio Alcantara, David Bodie, Matt Duffy, Andrew Romine, Frank Swindle, Patrick Wisdom.
Wow.
Catchers: Robinson Chirinos, Wilson Contreras. Outfielders: Jonas C. Oh, that's a weird name. Fargus, Ian Happ, Jason Hayward, Rafael Vega.
Yeah, and that like Hayward contract is gonna be when he signed, I was like, that's gonna bite them in the ass at some point. And I believe he still has at least like 5 years left on that deal on top of that. So they're gonna be paying that thing for a while. But that was pretty much the MLB trading deadline there. A lot of crazy things, and we'll see how the postseason goes. Because there were a lot of teams who weren't selling this year, and there were actually a lot of teams buying. So it became extremely active. And speaking of extremely active, we then transition over to hockey, where we saw the expansion draft and also like free agency. And part of the expansion draft, Matt, was with the Penguins. They lost Brandon Tanev, and before that, we saw Jared McCann trade over to the Toronto Maple Leafs, only for them to like not protect him, and then he eventually gets he eventually gets selected in the expansion draft as well. So really, the Penguins lost two guys in the expansion draft, which I can see why people are questioning that. But I think at the same time too, with Hextall and Brian Burke I think with Tanev, even though he was really popular here, they saw him as pretty expandable, and based on some of the guys who they signed are kind of a similar style of guys for him. So I can understand that, but man, but man, like McCann gone.
I think the big thing was the cap.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I think they only have like $5 million in cap space, which I was hoping that they were going to be able to trade a like Pedersen or a like Matheson to clear some cap space. More so with like Pedersen, just because I think he's getting paid around like 3 or like 4 million per season for the next 4 or 5 years. So that would have really helped out, but even Hextall said we aren't going to be really really heavily involved outside of some small moves here and there. And then probably the most shocking thing, Matt, was the LA Knights, or the Vegas Knights trading former Penguin Marc-Andre Fleury to Chicago for absolutely nothing. It was basically a salary dump, and this was a big controversy because I'm not sure if you saw, but apparently, like management never told him at all that he was being traded. Marc-Andre Fleury actually found out from like Kevin Weeks, since Kevin Weeks was actually talking to him on the phone at the time, and he said like Flower was completely shocked. So like, what did you think about that whole situation right there?
I thought that was just I don't want to say shocked that they trade him, but for what they got for him,
yeah,
and just how it just seems like it was handled was just it paints Vegas in a terrible light.
Not to mention, he won a freaking Vezina trophy, and I've never seen anything like that. It's like we're just literally giving him away, and it was pretty obvious they wanted his contract off of the books there, and now it really sucks for him, because now there was a question: oh, is he going to report to Chicago? Because there were some concerns of him possibly just saying no, I'm not going to show up, and like there were some people hoping that maybe he would force a trade over to for the Penguins, but based on everything that you're hearing from guys who cover us, is nope, they're not even considering that. And I feel like a lot of that has to like do with our salary cap there. So it's just that whole thing was pretty insane.
He's making $7 million cap hit.
Yeah,
no way.
No, like we would have to trade both like Jari and or
just
we would have to trade a like Jari and a like Pedersen or someone, because I think that would count to like over 10 million, 7 million,
or
8 million,
7.5.
Right. Okay. So basically, right at like Flowers contract there. So it would have been.
You would have
right. And I think if his contract was around like 3 or 4, maybe that would have been possible. But at 7
1 year left.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, he could always come back here. I mean, I think that is very possible. But now it looks like
next year is going to be, after next season is going to be interesting, and that's probably why they probably weren't going to do a big splash because next year I'm looking here. Malkin's
Tanks
UFA,
too.
the Tank, Rust, Kapanen, Jeff Carter's probably be gone.
Yeah, like he'll be gone.
Tang, Rudy,
Casey is Casey D. Smith's contract up too? Okay, yeah, I thought so.
Ricola, yeah. So
yeah, like there's a thought. I tell you, like one contract I'm gonna be really interested to seeing is like Geno's, because I can tell you right now he ain't gonna be sniffing his current contract right now, because I believe he is going to turn 35, or he just turned 35.
He is 35 right now.
Okay, yeah. He just turned 35, which means by the time his contract's up, he's going to be at 36. And I can tell right now, I'm not sure if he would make like half of what he is currently making on the open market, just because A, of his age, and B, he has been getting hurt so often now. And like whether it's a shoulder, a knee, a like hand, or it's always something with him at this point. Whereas a guy in Sid, he's been pretty consistent. Whereas a Geno, you can just tell his body is just really breaking down at this point.
Yeah, it just seems like it's not. I think those injuries have really seems coming to haunt him.
Yeah.
I don't want to say haunt him, but just he's not the same
time.
Yeah. Which sucks. So that's going to be very interesting to see if they re-sign him. It'd be like 2 years maybe.
I think so. It won't be. Yeah, he won't be getting a Alexander Ovechkin contract where I think he's getting like 8 or like 9 for the next 5 years. He's not going to be sniffing that. I can tell you that right now. Like if this was Sid, I think it would be complete. It would be a different story because I feel like with Sid, he'll be able to play up until he's like 37 and 38. Whereas with Geno, I just think just the amount of injuries he has had, and at his age, I just think you're going to be seeing just a more steady regression from him, and that really pains me to say that, but it's been pretty obvious for the last few seasons. He just can't stay healthy over a full season anymore, and that's going to like be like true for the upcoming season, because I think he's slated to probably like miss the first month or two, because I believe he had shoulder surgery, so it's always something really nagging him. So yeah, that was pretty much all of the hockey news right there. And the last thing that I want to touch on, I'm not sure if you heard about this, but Texas and Oklahoma, they are going to be leaving the like Big 12 and are going to the SEC starting in the 2025 season. And the only question I get asked, Matt, is the Big 12 officially a dead conference now at this point?
But it's not the same, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Who else is in the Big 12?
Well, like I believe teams such as like West Virginia, Iowa State, Missouri, Texas Tech,
OSU, Kansas, Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma State there too.
There's Texas and Oklahoma. Yeah, it's not the.
And supposing now the ACC is interested in possibly having like West Virginia and like Notre Dame part of the conference. Which, if that happens, which honestly I kind of see that happening, especially with teams such as Syracuse and Pitt in the ACC, long time long time rivals there. So and like Notre Dame, they were in the conference this year because of everything going on with COVID there. So it's just, man, like you're just seeing more and more teams like moving, and basically the conferences now are like, there's basically like 2 or 3 conferences that really matter between the ACC, the SEC, and the like Big Ten, and then over in the Pac-12, they seem to be like on the distant other other spectrum there.
Like you have all these people, like nobody's going to. You're gonna have all these teams. Nobody is gonna win. All these teams are not going to win their conference. SEC, well, you got Alabama, you got all these big schools.
Yep.
And is Texas and Oklahoma going to compete? Yeah, that helps with recruiting, per se. But if you're facing all these teams,
which I think when Oklahoma and Texas do are part of the SEC, we need to see see a more expanded football playoff like system there, to where it's like 10 or 12 teams that could be in it instead of like just like what 4 right now. Just because I mean, like
the same, close to the same 2.
Right. It's like you can only have so many teams in like 2 or 3 conferences that are really competing every single year, and not everyone can freaking win their conference. So it's like, I don't see, and for the amount of like cash that they make, I don't understand why they just don't expand this freaking thing.
I thought it would be good to. Now, I don't know how that would work with scheduling and all that. Just
right
to start off with every conference winner, I forget how many are in there, makes it to the playoffs.
Right.
And you just go from there. So winning your conference really
like first round bye or something like that.
The highest rank that the rankings make you can determine the first round bye.
Just basically do it similar of how the NFL does it. It's just
or something.
I
hate how rankings, how a group of people determine who is playing for a national championship. And I mean, obviously somebody's going to get left out when you do it. Look at the NCAA tournament, but that's 64 teams. So
that's. I mean, like it's difference between 64 and say like 3 or 4 teams.
But if you win your conference, like now, like you win your conference, okay, what you get a more. Maybe the ranking goes up, or you get to at the very you get to a better bowl game. Like whoop-de-doo. To me, and I've a couple years ago, I got in a not an argument, but a debate with somebody about these bowl games. Like, to me, recruiting, but like if you're not playing for like a national championship, I don't
know. Unless you were heavily into like sports gambling, like it's just like
you're not in the 4 teams playing for the national championship. You're in the what's a bowl that's
Chick-fil-A Bowl,
and maybe you were ranked, I don't know, 5, and you're playing the same, whatever. It's just to say that bowl was bigger. You win, but you win the Chick-fil-A Bowl, and maybe that's money. Like to me, yay.
And especially now, since they
it means
since
nothing.
and especially
does.
Well, yeah, and typically a lot of those kids who are considering going for the NFL too, it's like, well, I'm not going to even participate now. That might change since now these kids can now they can now like make cash off of their like names because of that like bill that passed
Yeah.
with the Supreme Court and everything there.
And then expanded playoff that just increases the parity.
Yeah.
Look at
Absolutely.
I mean, look at the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament. Like, you just need one Cinderella team to get hot and
single
elimination.
elimination, anything can happen.
Alabama faces I'm just throwing out a team now, West Virginia or Penn State.
Yeah.
That, like if Penn State, West Virginia beat Alabama in the first, second round, I don't know, or second round if say Alabama gets a bye, what have you, like that's interesting. Then it's like you feel like, oh, it's anybody's game now because powerhouse Alabama's out. And you still have your Clemsons and your Auburns and your Ohio States, but it just be more interesting in just I think it's for fans to watch those games. I mean, I don't watch a lot of college football besides Pitt during the regular season, but when it comes to those playoff games, everybody's watching. I'm all in.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, that was pretty much, I think, everything that we had to discuss. Matt, did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on here?
No, not really.
Okay, all right. Then I'll let you close this
out. So thanks everybody for watching episode 95. We did a little live edition here because of our schedules and stuff this week. So when we're not doing it live for any reason, you can find a new episode each and every week here on the channel at 3:00. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, all that fun stuff. You know the drill. And for John, I'm Matt. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.